dengan Kementerian Pengangkutan untuk mengadakan saringan kesihatan kepada para pemandu. Ini sedang dalam perancangan, kita tengah membincangkan maklumat-maklumat secara detail.
SIM berkata pada 2023, jumlah tuntutan dibayar di bawah skim bencana kerja per keso bagi kemalangan terbabit melebihi 1.39 bilion ringgit. Setakat Jun tahun ini, jumlah pembayaran tuntutan adalah hampir 718 juta ringgit. SIM berkata langkah proaktif sangat diperlukan untuk mengurangkan risiko dan membendung kemalangan di tempat kerja yang terus meningkat dengan mengukuhkan protokol keselamatan dan menambah baik keadaan di tempat kerja.
Baik, industri penerbangan sedang mengalami pertumbuhan pesat dengan Persatuan Pengangkutan Udara Antarabangsa IATA meramalkan bahawa jumlah penumpang akan berganda kepada 8.2 bilion setiap tahun menjelang 2037 dan peningkatan dalam perjalanan udara ini memerlukan peningkatan yang ketara dalam tenaga kerja penerbangan termasuk jurutera pesawat. Menurut laporan tinjauan pasaran komersial Boeing 2021, industri penerbangan komersial global akan memerlukan 43,610 pesawat baru dalam tempoh 20 tahun akan datang dan pengembangan ini mendorong keperluan untuk lebih ramai jurutera untuk mereka bentuk, menyelenggara dan memberi perkhidmatan kepada pesawat-pesawat ini. Dan untuk mengulas lanjut perkara ini bersama saya secara dalam talian adalah Profesor Media Teknologis Dr. Wan Mazlina Wan Muhammad, Pengarah Institut Pengangkutan Malaysia Mitrans UiTM. Baik Prof, pertama sekali kita nak tahu apakah realiti semasa berkait pakar atau jurutera dalam industri penerbangan dan kita nak tahu sama ada juga dalam konteks Malaysia dan juga global. Silakan Prof.
Okey. Assalamualaikum, selamat pagi Nabilah. Saya rasa isu ni adalah isu global. Ianya tidak bermula sekarang saja, tetapi ianya bermula apabila berlakunya pandemik COVID-19. Di mana semasa COVID-19 itu ramai jurutera dalam industri penerbangan sama ada diberi tawaran VSS ataupun diminta diberhentikan. So bila ramai jurutera diberhentikan, bila tamatnya COVID, permintaan itu bertambah balik dan akan tetapi jurutera ni atau lebih kita kenali sebagai Licensed Aircraft Maintenance Engineer atau lebih senang saya panggil LAE ataupun LAME, mungkin telah mendapat pekerjaan yang lain ataupun telah merupakan bidang. Jadi bila dia nak pulang balik ke bila syarikat penerbangan panggil balik untuk bekerja bersama, jadi dia susah nak mendapat balik staf-staf yang berpengalaman. Satu lagi, banyak juga syarikat-syarikat penerbangan baru tumbuh selepas COVID-19 di mana permintaan untuk penerbangan bertambah. Jadi untuk cara yang paling cepat untuk mereka mendapat jurutera ataupun LAME ini adalah dengan menarik daripada pekerja-pekerja ataupun LAME yang dah berpengalaman dan mahir untuk masuk join dengan syarikat penerbangan dan juga permintaan yang baru seperti juga penerbangan yang syarikat penerbangan yang stabil umpamanya dapat menawarkan gaji yang lebih lumayan. Selain daripada itu, mereka juga mempunyai teknologi cara pengurusan yang lebih baik dan itu juga menjadikan persaingan yang sengit di antara syarikat-syarikat penerbangan bukan saja di Malaysia malah di dunia.
Prof, bantu kami faham juga berkenaan dengan situasi semasa berkenaan dengan persaingan. Adakah persaingannya semakin sengit untuk syarikat penerbangan mendapatkan jurutera pesawat yang berkemahiran dan adakah saingan itu dari segi penawaran gaji ataupun kemahiran dan sebagainya? Bagaimana dengan pendapat Prof tentang perkara ini?
Okey. Sebelum tu kita kena tahu juga untuk menjadi LAME ataupun Licensed Engineer ni, proses dia amat rumit. Untuk menjadi Licensed Engineer ni proses untuk basic sahaja mengambil masa dalam 3 ke 4 tahun. Selepas tu dia kena pergi ke OJT dan OJT ni bukan boleh dibuat di mana-mana, kena buat dengan syarikat penerbangan yang aktif selama 2 tahun. Lepas tu dia kena juga menduduki peperiksaan dengan melalui dengan CEM. Jadi proses tu lama kos juga tinggi untuk menjalani training ataupun latihan program untuk menjadi license engineer ni memakan kos dia dalam 110,000 kepada 140,000. Jadi bila orang kadang-kadang dia dah invest, dia nak pulangan balik di Singapura umpamanya dapat menawarkan gaji yang tinggi untuk orang kata kalau junior sahaja boleh mendapat gaji di antara 3,500 Sing dollar ataupun lebih kurang dalam 12,000 Malaysia kepada 5,000 Sing dollar. Itu baru junior. Yang kalau yang lebih berpengalaman daripada 5 tahun boleh mendapat dalam 8,000 Sing dollar hingga ke 12,000 Sing dollar, iaitu hingga hampir ke 40,000. Begitu juga dengan Timur Tengah. So naiknya seperti Emirates, Qatar Airlines dan di Saudi sebagainya, license engineer yang berpengalaman ditawarkan di antara 30 hingga ke 35,000. Manakala di Malaysia sebab kebanyakan junior boleh mendapatkan basic dalam 8,000 without type rating. Ini yang tadi yang saya cakap tu untuk mendapatkan tempoh just basic without type rating saja mengambil masa 3 ke 4 tahun, tak termasuk dengan OJT dan masuk dengan OJT dan juga exam. Okey, nak dapatkan type rating, kalau ada type rating umpamanya seperti A330, A350, Boeing 737 dan sebagainya, perlu menjalani latihan yang lebih mendalam dengan syarikat penerbangan. Dan apabila syarikat pekerja tu dah ada pengalaman, of course dia punya gaji bertambah. Okey, tapi saya rasa gaji bukan sahaja semata-mata yang menjadikan persaingan tu sengit. Seperti yang saya kata, juga kadang-kadang kita perlu tengok bagaimana pengurusan syarikat penerbangan menjaga pekerja mereka ataupun license engineer mereka. Macam saya kata, mungkin bukan sahaja cara pengurusan, tetapi juga bagaimana environment, conducive environment di tempat bekerja dan juga teknologi yang dijalankan. Jadi kadang-kadang bila terlalu banyak bila pekerja merasakan terlalu terbeban, dia akan mungkinlah dia akan mencari arah tuju ke tempat lain lah. Dan juga ada juga yang bila kita tengok kebanyakan yang macam masa COVID dulu yang diberhentikan adalah kebanyakan yang senior. So dia tinggal yang middle orang kata middle level tu. Tetapi bila yang senior ni mungkin dia bila nak balik-balik mungkin dia demand dia mungkin gaji yang lebih tinggi dan sebagainya. Dan juga teknologi lah, juga syarikat penerbangan, setengah syarikat penerbangan macam di Singapura dan dia ada juga menggunakan teknologi yang lebih canggih dan sebagainya, membuatkan orang tertarik untuk pergi ke syarikat lain. Sebab bukan saja gaji lah, tapi saya rasa lebih ada banyak lagi faktor-faktor yang menyeluruh saya rasa yang perlu diambil kira.
Dan seperti yang kita tahu tadi, penumpang ataupun ramalan jumlah penumpang akan berganda sekitar 8.2 bilion setiap tahun dan juga permintaan untuk pesawat baru juga meningkat dalam 20 tahun akan datang. Jadi bantu kami faham, Prof, apakah implikasi atau kesan terutama kepada syarikat-syarikat penerbangan sekiranya masalah kekurangan sumber manusia dalam bidang kejuruteraan ini tidak dapat diatasi, dan mungkin apakah langkah strategik yang boleh kita lakukan untuk atasi masalah ini, Prof?
Ya, seperti yang kita kata, it's not going to be orang kata quick fix ya. Tak boleh cepat sebab proses untuk mendapatkan jurutera yang berpengalaman ni lama and dia melibatkan orang kata keselamatan penerbangan. Jika kita nombor satu, bila kita kekurangan jurutera yang mahir dan berpengalaman, salah satu adalah image syarikat penerbangan itu. Bila ada kelewatan, bila ada delay atau macam masalah teknikal dan sebagainya, ia akan menjatuhkan image sesebuah syarikat penerbangan. Dua, ia juga akan menambahkan kos operasi yang lebih tinggi. Bila kita ada delay, kita ada technical issue dan sebagainya, kapal terbang terpaksa masuk balik ke hangar untuk dibaiki. Jadi menambahkan kos operasi, dan juga untuk penumpang kita kena bagi compensation dan sebagainya. So itu satu lagi dalam kos operasi. Juga untuk kualiti keselamatan dan penyelenggaraan lah. So kalau kita ada macam itulah, bukan saya kata it's not because nak dapat kata pekerja yang mahir untuk detect apa technical issue ni, dia kita perlu orang yang berpengalaman. So dia akan juga menjejaskan kualiti keselamatan dan penjagaan. Selain daripada itu, saya rasa itulah banyak lagi lah. Is pengurusan juga gangguan pada jadual operasi, kehilangan peluang pertumbuhan. So bila orang dah hilang kepercayaan, susah untuk kita orang kata to grow. Dan cabaran kepada pematuhan peraturan, dan juga salah satunya adalah penurunan moral pekerja. Pekerja rasa dia pun macam bila image dah jatuh, dia pun rasa macam moral dia pun, motivation dia pun kurang. Dan of course kepada Malaysia, ekonomi yang dia akan affect ekonomi, di mana pelancong untuk menggunakan syarikat penerbangan itu akan berkurangan. So is a holistic effect. Dia holistic, bukan saja kepada syarikat penerbangan tetapi juga kepada Malaysia sendiri. Selain daripada itu, saya rasa untuk macam saya kata, untuk solutionnya, saya rasa banyak benda yang kita perlu. Sebab saya kata untuk dapatkan balik, untuk training, memang saya rasa kerajaan telah menggalakkan institusi untuk menjalankan TVET. Sebab seperti yang kita faham, license engineer ini berbeza dengan aircraft engineer ataupun aerospace engineer. Aerospace engineer khusus ini ditawarkan di universiti-universiti awam. Tetapi untuk license engineer, ia lebih kepada skill, di mana tenaga pengajarnya perlu mempunyai pengalaman pekerjaan, baru dia boleh mengajar untuk orang menjadi license engineer. So salah satunya saya rasa kalau kita nak, mungkin kerajaan perlu memberi insentif untuk menawarkan program ataupun package yang whole, sebab untuk latihan untuk menjadi license engineer ni, macam tadi saya kata mahal, dan juga kena buat OJT dengan syarikat penerbangan. So mungkin ada insentif kepada syarikat-syarikat penerbangan untuk melatih pelajar-pelajar baru, dan juga program. Selain daripada itu, itulah mungkin kita kena hire balik jurutera-jurutera senior yang berpengalaman untuk menjadi ataupun menjadi penasihat ataupun advisor lah untuk khusus license engineer ni.
Dan sudah tentu usaha ini perlukan sinergi dari pelbagai pihak, bukan sahaja dari peringkat pendidikan, iaitu dari segi TVET ataupun Akademi Industri AII. Kita juga perlu perhatikan dari segi pengurusan dan juga dasar dan polisi dari pihak kerajaan. Jadi terima kasih diucapkan kepada Profesor Media Teknologis Dr. Wan Mazlina Wan Muhammad, Pengarah Institut Pengangkutan Malaysia Midtrans UiTM, atas perkongsian itu tadi. Baik, kita akan teruskan dengan perkembangan seterusnya GSME. Dibawakan oleh penaja utama jelajah jiwa SME, Unify Business, rakan digital pilihan anda. 7 syarikat tempatan mengorak satu langkah ke hadapan apabila berjaya menembusi pasaran baharu di peringkat global. Ia direalisasikan hasil kerjasama Dewan Perniagaan Perindustrian dan Pelaburan Malaysia WUSI China menerusi satu perjanjian persefahaman MOU yang ditandatangani baru-baru ini.
Syarikat tersebut ialah Remedic Essential Sedang Berhad, Ada Agro Sedang Berhad, Agro, RS Ulung Engineering Sedang Berhad, Sinar Development and Consultancy Sedang Berhad, Selecta Station M Sedang Berhad, Aura Angkasa Sedang Berhad dan Defcom X Sedang Berhad. Menurut pengerusi DPPPMWC, Datuk Hassan Saad, pencapaian itu adalah hasil peranan persatuannya dalam mempromosikan peluang perniagaan serta pelaburan berpotensi untuk diceburi oleh usahawan bukan sahaja di Malaysia tetapi juga dari WUSI.
Kita menyaksikan 7 syarikat yang menandatangani perjanjian persefahaman bersama Dewan Perniagaan, Perindustrian dan Pelaburan Malaysia WUSHI, yang mana kesemua syarikat ini telah dipilih untuk kita kemukakan kepada pihak pelabur kita di China melalui WUSHI Federation Industry of Commerce. Antaranya syarikat-syarikat dari dalam sektor pertanian, tenaga, pembalakan, medical. Ini antara yang kita telah pilih selain daripada syarikat pembekal produk makanan ready to eat, ready to drinks yang kita akan bawa ke sana. InsyaAllah mereka ni semua akan kita kemukakan dan kita akan bawa ke China pada 19 Oktober nanti untuk kita realisasikan kesemua perjanjian-perjanjian ini dengan China yang melibatkan pelaburan hampir 100 bilion. Dan antara sektor yang kontribut paling banyak adalah sektor tenaga, syarikat sinar, yang mana pelaburan melibatkan sehingga 40 bilion. So yang lain kontribut, ada yang 1 bilion, ada yang beratus juta. Tapi kalau kita tengok untuk jangka masa 10 tahun ataupun 5 tahun, saya jangkakan nilai pelaburan atau nilai transaksi perniagaan ini boleh mencecah lebih 200 bilion untuk tempoh 5 tahun.
Usaha sama antara Malaysia dan syarikat-syarikat dari China semakin kukuh selaras dengan aspirasi Perdana Menteri Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim untuk menarik lebih banyak pelaburan dari luar negara, khususnya dari negara besar seperti China. WUSHI adalah sebuah bandar yang terletak di selatan wilayah Jiangsu yang mana perjalanan dari bandar Shanghai mengambil masa selama sejam untuk ke bandar tersebut. WUSHI dikenali sebagai salah satu destinasi perindustrian moden di China untuk menjadi lembah Silicon Chiplet atau Chiplet Valley.
Dibawakan oleh penaja utama jelajah jiwa SME, Unify Business, rakan digital pilihan anda.
Bila kerja sendiri, semua kena buat sendiri. Tapi, bersama rakan niaga, semuanya dapat ditempuhi bersama.
Apa signifikan dengan pengumuman ataupun berita yang keluar dari media China ini berkaitan dengan hasrat Malaysia untuk menyertai gabungan BRICS?
Kita mau dapat lebih banyak umpamanya pelaburan daripada negara China.
Kalau melihat kepada Akta Kanak-Kanak 2001, adakah kita terlalu lambat untuk melihat proses untuk meminda akta sedia ada?
Kita perlu ada penyelarasan. Kita tak mahu bekerja secara silo.
Welcome back to Niaga AWANI. And Mercer Marsh Benefits recently released its People Risk 2024 report, identifying Asia's 25 top people risk in the post-pandemic era. Some of the top concerns are consistent with the global top 25 people risks, such as differences reflect the different growth rates experienced by markets across the region. And the report also highlights and analyzes 3 significant blind spots that have gained importance since its identification in 2022, which are rising health and benefit costs, mental health challenges among the workforce, and the decline of diversity, equity and inclusion DEI. And keeping sights on the future, the 2024 report also predicts 3 new blind spots that will impact human capital, underscoring the urgent need for strategic planning and review of current human resources related policies and procedures. So to discuss further, before that, I'm going to show you some data and statistics on People Risk 2024 Asia that was done by Mercer Marsh Benefits. So to discuss further, we can see that the top People Risk Asia, and we can combine or compare it with the global. I'm only taking the top 3 points or risk. That's for global, Asia, China, Hong Kong, India, Philippines, Singapore, and Thailand. And as you can see here, half of the first rank on the first number 1 spot you can see that the color is around sort of green or blue here, and it shows that it lies under the governance, compliance, and financial. So as you can see for global, it shows that the increasing health and benefit costs ranks at the first number, and same goes to Asia, and that includes specifically for the countries of India and also Philippines, and that on the first rank. And for the second rank, you can see that the color of purple, sort of, that includes the talent, leadership, and workforce practices. That shows there are the labor shortages and competitive talent strategies. Also, ineffective leadership takes the second number. And for the rank number 3, it shows that it shows different colors over here, and for the pink color, it shows that the worries or the risk that risk some of the countries, which shows the technological change and also disruption. For the purple is talent, leadership, and workforce practices. Meanwhile, the dark purple is health, well-being, and safety. Like I mentioned earlier, the color of blue, governance, compliance, and financial. Meanwhile, green shows on the certain uncertainty of risk or worries on environmental sustainability and protection. All right, that's on the top 3 identified by Mercer Marsh Benefits. So to discuss further, I'm inviting the leader of Mercer Marsh Benefits Malaysia himself, Mr. Ho Moon Kiat, joining me in the studio this morning. Thank you so much for taking time. Based on what I presented earlier, can you give some of your takes on what have been found or identified on the top 3 risks in Asia?
Yep, certainly. I think you have rightly pointed out where from the risk report that we have discovered recently, that the rising healthcare costs is an increasing issues that we are facing, not just globally, as you can see from the chart, and also in Asia, but also I wanted to highlight in Malaysia as well. We have seen the cost has been increasing very much, even from the last report we have done in 2022 compared to the report in 2024, where a lot of organizations in Malaysia are facing the rising of the healthcare costs impacting their employee benefits program. Why is this important? Because if you look at most organizations in Malaysia, the healthcare comprises or dominates a big chunk of the employee benefits. So if organizations are spending a lot on the healthcare, then that's where, that's putting a lot of burden in terms of cost and investment for the businesses. That's right.
Like you mentioned earlier, the increasing health and benefit costs is being the top concern. So how can we actually balance between cost management for the employers and also providing adequate health and also well-being support to employees at the same time?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So we have got a lot of inquiries from our clients as well, asking us, so how do we combat this? How do we manage the rising costs? And, the simple and traditional way, it's obviously, just to get an insurance policy, negotiate very hard with insurance companies and see how they can get a better cost to cover medical expenses. But I think over a long period of time, how do you make it more sustainable is really to look internally within your organizations. What are the factors that is driving the claim costs in your organizations? Where is it coming from? Who is it coming from? That's one. And then to look at how do you then repurpose it? How do you look at your benefit plans? Are they engaging your employees? Which are the areas that you need to focus on to mitigate future costs that you're seeing? So one of those things that we do a lot with our clients is to go through analytics and help clients to identify what are the cost drivers, looking at your plan designs and see how you can make it more cost sustainability and mitigating some of the costs that we will see that will impact your overall cost surge in the coming years.
That's the top 3 risks identified or top concerns that's happening right now in Malaysia, in Asia, and that includes Malaysia as well for 2024. But we're going to go to the second page, which shows the risk shifts for in 2022 and in 2024. We can see that there are some changes in colors based on the risk pillar that I mentioned earlier. But this is not based on rank, right? No. This is not based on 1, 2, or 3, but this just shows the difference between these 2 years, 2022 and 2024. And it shows that during 2022, it's focused more on the current situation, such as pandemics and also health situation, like environment, changing nature of work. And the shift towards 2024 is more towards mental health. That's and right. Also labor shortages, tech skills shortages, especially that we have the technological advancements right now. We have AI and whatnot.
That's right.
So Can you actually help us understand more about the changes of risk in 2022 and 2024?
Right, great question. So I think one of the things that we saw very much in 2024 report, especially coming from the Malaysian data that we saw, is the mental health deterioration. The burnout rates that we have seen across organization, it's quite alarming. So a lot of data that we're seeing that employees are feeling burnout, they're feeling very stressful, they're feeling that, they needed a break. Work-life balance is one of those things that a lot of employees are calling out. Is there a stop to work? Yeah. So this is one of those things that we see that it's on a rise. And one of those things we also see is employees look up to employers for guidance. Right, you can't blame them, right? They spend 9 to 5 at work, Mondays to Fridays at the workplace. They look up to employers for policies, for guidance, and also for well-being as well. So I think employers play a very important role to guide employees how to manage their mental health, their stress at work. And I feel, and one of the things that we saw in the report, less than 30% of employees see that as their role. And that's very alarming. So that's the mismatch that we see. Employees are looking up, and that the numbers are showing us that the burnout rates are high. But employees, on the other hand, only less than 30% see that as a prominent role. And if you look out, most employers, at least in the urban area, the most they do is they just put an employee assistance program, a phone number that you can contact when you're stressed and that we need to speak to someone. But frankly, how many employees do reach out to the line? Because mental health is a stigma in Asia. You can't tell your employers that, I'm not feeling well, that I'm not sleeping well, I have problems at home, I've got this, right? So what do your employees think of you? I may be bypassed promotion, they may think of getting rid of me and things. So that culture, in that itself, employees don't have that space to voice it out. So I think that's where we feel from the report, that's where we also want to advocate to our clients, is we need to look a lot more into the well-being of employees, especially on the mental health issues.
And it doesn't show here actually, but during in the full report, it shows that in 2022, the mental health deterioration is at the level or rank 20th, but in 2024 it is ranked 6th, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
And that's something, the kind of gap they have to bridge between these two and years to come. So I hope all employers out there can actually look into this very seriously. But that's on the top 10 risks in Asia and the shift towards 22 and 24. But right now we want to look at collaboration between HR and risk managers. As you can see, only 99% of respondents say HR and risk functions collaborate to mitigate people risk, and those reported a great deal of collaboration are much more effective at managing people risk. However, there are still misalignment on top risk needs to be addressed between HR and risk. And it is said that risk managers are more concerned about technology and cybersecurity related risks and the impact of natural disasters, ranking them as more severe than their HR counterparts. Meanwhile, HR managers from a conventional professional standpoint are primarily focused on workforce engagement, benefits, talent attraction and retention related to rewards and benefits. So, Mr. Ho, help us understand better how can actually we bridge the gap or further collaborate the relationship between HR and risk managers in an organization.
Yes. So going back to the context of how this report came to be, we sent survey results, survey questions to risk management people and HR professionals as well. And where are the focal point for the risk management people and also the HR? And that's where we saw a disparity in terms of a gap between, from the risk perspective, obviously if organizations are obviously fighting or very, very careful on cyber security. And that's not wrong, right? I mean, data security, data breaches and all that has been very rampant. We have been seeing nowadays in the workplace. But on the other side, right, the people risk in terms of health issues, rising healthcare costs, mental health issues are also very real. And it's also one of those things that is increasing and is alarming as well, which we felt on the risk perspective on what risk managers are looking at is not within the radar. So I think it's very important to also bridge the gap so that leaders of organizations need to look at, yes, one part of the risk is very much on data security and that, but another big factor on the risk, which is the people. And we know your greatest asset apart from your business is actually your employees. And it's one area that obviously employees need to start looking at is your people risk. How are they feeling? Are they productive? How are their mental well-being? How are the benefits programs helping them to perform better, to be more productive at work? So I think this is one area which also we want to highlight from the people risk report, where there needs to be a more focus in terms of the people risk that organizations are facing, especially in Asia and Malaysia, where the focal for most risks is predominantly focused very much on the digital, the technology and the cybersecurity side. Yeah.
And as we can see, the most concern on tech is China.
That's right. No secret, right?
First, no secrets, yes. First and third as well, which is include tech skill shortages and mishandling of data. But I wonder what's the data for Malaysia. I hope we can get that from the next report. But on the next page, we can see the evolution of risk blind spots. As you can see, the 2022 blind spots first is mental health, increasing health risk protection and well-being, benefit costs, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this brings to 2024 risks right now. So what happened, Mr. Ho? How can the 2022 blind spots can actually bring to 2024 race right now? And as you can see, we also have blind spots for 2024.
That's
and
right.
How can we make sure these blind spots don't bring to another 2 or perhaps 10 years to come?
So it's a great question, right? So I think if we don't look at what is driving up these factors, right? So what is driving up mental health? What is driving up the costs that organizations are feeling? Obviously, there need to be a deep dive within an organization to see then what do we need to do to make sure when we do this in 2026 again, are we going to see the same things? And likelihood, if we don't address the root cause of this, it may be even worse because obviously, what is not being contained is obviously, it will obviously be one of the risks for most organizations. So it's very important that employers will start to look deep within your organizations, because this data tells the broader picture. But what is within your organizations, what is driving up, for example, if you look at rising benefit costs, what is driving up your costs within your organizations? Is it your benefit plans? Is it coming from which area of your employees? Which segment? Is it certain risk work area that is driving up this cost? Is it ergonomics? Or is it certain areas within your work that is driving up the cost? So where is it coming from? Before then, you start looking at areas to mitigate this. So a lot needs to be done by looking deep within the organizations to see what is happening within organizations, to then start looking at steps to mitigate it, which we feel is very important. But a lot, when you look at 2022, when we just came up from the pandemic, we saw data like this happening. But then if it's not looking deep enough to address these issues, we see it coming back. It just won't go away because obviously we are not tackling the root cause that is driving up the risk that we are seeing at the moment, the issues that we're seeing at the moment.
So to all viewers, make sure the focus is now on this side, 2024 blind spots. Make sure to be aware, also be vigilant of 3 points: chronic illnesses, management or artificial intelligence, AI, also natural disasters and extreme weather. And as per, like for example, we have recent issues, sinkhole and flood, so whatnot. So again, thank you so much to Mr. Ho Mun Kiat, the leader of Mercer Marsh Benefits Malaysia. Thank you so much for helping us understand better on your report. And we'll go for a short break. We have more updates after this on fintech, so we're going to go for a short break. We'll be right back after this. University Malaya UM is expected to offer a cardiothoracic specialist training course this October.
There will be no U-turn on the implementation of the Vehicle Entry Permit VEP for all foreign vehicles entering Malaysia from Singapore.
Diesel sales at petrol stations have decreased by 30% within the first week of the fuel subsidy rationalisation on June 10th.
Dah tahu kerja start pukul 9, 8.50 dah dekat table. Lambat. You are...
Anak, breakfast?
Pergi buat research 100 video paling best di Asia.
Sikit pun Mama Fish rasa tak menyesal walaupun Mama Fish terpaksa kerja dengan bos yang daripada neraka tu sebab korang.
Kuaci media nak tutup sebabkan you tau. You keluar dari office saya sekarang.
Kenapa aku je asyik kena kuat?
Fish, kau sedar tak? Budak-budak tu yang mangsa korban sekarang ni. Disebabkan I tak percaya yang you ada anak, I ingat nak balas balik untuk jaga anak-anak you.
Sorry, Uncle Boss Mama.
I tak nak you panggil I bos. I nak you panggil I Josh. I kan kawan you. Mamat tu mesti suka you kan? Fish, sudi tak? Kau jadi isteri aku.
Uncle Boss Mama mulai 9 September 10 malam di Astro dan Astro Go.
5 lelaki penghantar makanan didakwa di Mahkamah Magistrate Bangi atas tuduhan membunuh seorang pemandu kereta lelaki dalam satu kejadian.
4 sungai di sekitar kawasan perindustrian Pasir Gudang di Johor termasuk Sungai Kim Kim didapati tercemar dan berada pada tahap yang membimbangkan. Kerajaan sudah mulakan inisiatif untuk menggantikan kenderaan operasinya kepada kenderaan elektrik EV dalam skala kecil terlebih dahulu.
Thank you for tuning into Niaga AWANI. Right now, we're on the topic of fintech or financial technology, where Merchant Trade Asia Sdn Bhd unveiled their corporate card, which is Merchant Trade Moneybase, and it is now Malaysia's first Visa Business Prepaid Card, another innovative product set to streamline expense management for companies across various industries and sizes, and that includes from corporates to small and medium enterprises, SMEs. And as of June 30th, the company has already recorded 2.48 billion ringgit in transactions and is on track to achieve this year's target, which is 5 billion ringgit, surpassing last year's 4.3 billion ringgit. So to discuss further on this new innovative product, which is Merchant Trade Moneybase, joining me in the studio right now is Ivan alias Deputy Chief Commercial Officer of Merchant Trade Asia Sdn Bhd. Thank you so much for joining me this morning in our studio. First of all, congratulations for surpassing those targets, and this year is 5 billion ringgit, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Correct.
And first of all, we could start with what are the technical challenges that could arise when integrating this Merchant Trade Moneybase with existing fintech ecosystems that we have right now, and also the banking infrastructure we have in Malaysia. So what are the technical challenges, and also how can we address to ensure that seamless interoperability across all platforms?
Okay, thanks for having me here again. So I'll answer your questions in two parts, right? When it comes to technical integration with other fintech or other systems, the good thing about Merchant Trade Moneybase, that's the product we call it, it is a standalone system. It can operate on its own, right? What that means is that we've already integrated with, we've already implemented this product with, even the smaller enterprises, even to the larger corporates, right? Both of them have the mainframe system or the ERP system implemented, but what you see with Merchant Trade Moneybase is that it's a standalone, right? And it's friendly enough that you can actually operate it on its own. And with today's digital world, a lot of people think that when you adopt digital solution, you need to be integrated somehow. But truth to the matter in these circumstances is that you don't have to change systems. You just have to improve your processes, right? So what that means is that the processes within the company has to adjust with the fact that now you are having Merchant Trade Money business to support your payment infrastructure that exists within the company. Yeah, so that's how I will answer the question. Not much of integration that is needed. The system itself can operate on its standalone without interrupting the day-to-day operations within the company.
But how can we make sure the seamless process of this? So some might take it as a new product or innovative new product to actually to be put into their organizations or process or companies. So how do you make sure or tell them that this is actually an additional product to help the businesses grow or process better seamlessly? So how do you tell them?
Yeah, so that's a good question, right? Because we know today companies are already making payments for businesses, right? Whether they are using a existing corporate card, but most of them would probably are used to the process of pay and claim. Right, an employee would pay first and then claim it later, whether it's using a card, cash. So remember, there's a process that exists. Now, what we have done is that we've created a payment tool that allows payment on behalf of the company using a company's payment tool. So the process of reconciliation or identifying payments, receipts, and all this recognition can be done just through merchant trade system. So if you look at how I've explained it, what was done now and what we have provided doesn't really change. What we are improving, what we are just improving is how do we do your reconciliation or even your recognition in terms of payments for goods and services.
And this, in a way, will somehow change the regulatory system. So what strategies can be employed to actually stay ahead of the potential business and regulatory changes that might occur ahead?
Yeah, okay, let me answer this way. I know, while we are big, right, merchant trade is an organization that has exists more than decades, right? While we are big, we are also agile. What that means is that we need to adapt to changes, not just regulatory, but also business requirements, right? What we thought made sense 2 years ago from a business standpoint, we all know today it has changed, right? Whether it's because of the MCO that has changed certain behaviors in how we operate, those have changed. And so the way we stay ahead of our game, whether it's with regulatory, like what you have mentioned, or even business changes, is to have constant engagement with all stakeholders. And when I talk about stakeholders, that includes business partners, clients, regulators, or even our own staff within merchant trade, right? Because they have insights from the ground and even from their peers. Yeah.
And speaking of which, and this platform integrates or helps to not just small but also medium and also big enterprises of different industries and different sizes. So we're seeing that the number of SMEs is growing right now, and that means the number of transaction volumes increase as well. So how does Merchant Trade Moneybase ensure that its platform is capable to support this growing numbers of SMEs?
Okay, so you may be aware that merchant trade money platform is not something new. Of course, the corporate card, it's what we have just launched. But we started off with our individual card where you and I can use it as an individual. So the idea when we incorporated merchant trade money business, we have already thought about building it to scale because we know the acceptance from the business community or even the individual community. We know that our product will be liked and will be adapted to all businesses, and so we have already catered for that. On top of that, we partner with Visa, right? Our card is backed by Visa, so Visa being one of the largest payment payment platforms in Malaysia or even globally, right? It's able to cater for huge transaction volumes. So we were already ready from the start, knowing that our targets has always been wanting to get 10% of the SMEs to be onboarded with us, right? Or the corporates incorporated in Malaysia to be onboarded with us. Yes, so you can be assured that we've thought that when we created the product, and our product will be able to cater for the needs of even the businesses in Malaysia.
And this leads to my next question, and where how could it will impact the traditional banking institutions? Will it give a big impact, or just like you mentioned earlier, it's just an innovation, it's just an additional technology. So how will it impact actually?
So we're here to complement or to bridge the gap, right? Because we understand that there's a gap in the industry, right? So you're absolutely right. There are existing payment tools that have been serving businesses in Malaysia, which, for example, corporate credit cards. We've all heard of it. The problem with corporate credit card is we all know it serves just probably the 10% of the businesses in Malaysia, right? Mostly the large corporates.
Correct.
And within the 10% of the corporates, only probably 1% of the employees in that corporate are enabled with a credit card, which is probably the CFO or the CEOs, right, to make payments. But that leaves the rest of the employees, whether it's your dispatch, your IT personnel, your marketing department, the void and the hole is there, right? Because they will still fall to paying from their own pocket or requesting petty cash from their company and then make the payments on their own. So that's where we're trying to bridge the gap, right? So I wouldn't say, while we say we're disrupting or we're challenging the banks, but really we are complementing and serving where there was no solution provided to this. So whether it's a large corporate where you want to issue it to all employees, or even an individual, for example, influencers, right?
Correct.
And now we know influencers are already business people, and they want a payment tool for their business. Not necessarily, I want to separate what I can pay for business and what I can pay for my personal. I don't want to commingle those two, right? And now they also can apply for merchant trade money business. So those are things that we are trying to solve in this industry. Yeah.
Help me understand better, because right now we already have national payment systems, which is Do It Now and also PayNet. So how does this platform, Merchant Trade Money Base, actually can effectively integrate with these two national payments, Do It Now and PayNet? And perhaps what are the technical requirements and challenges of ensuring compatibility of these two, and also Merchant Trade Money Base at the same time, and also to ensure a real-time processing?
Okay. So I've mentioned this earlier. The tool that we use, of course, has a payment provider, or the network we use is Visa currently, right? So every business or every employee within the business who subscribe for Merchant Trade Money Biz will be issued a prepaid business card to them. And transactions are already real time, as you mentioned, right? Because it's Visa, admin or HR or finance can actually track transactions in real time. So as long a merchant can accept card payments, they can already use our payment tool. To your questions of, with the national payment switch, so today we are already a participant with PayNet for our individual QR. That means you can scan on QRs across country, as long as they're enabled with Do It Now. We understand we haven't enabled it for business, the team is still studying, but we understand there are some merchants, right, or suppliers where our client wants to pay that do not accept cards. So they need to do a transfer, right? So the team is looking at seeing whether they can enable, or studying the feasibility of enabling transfers from a business to a supplier via the Do It Now network. So
and
yes,
this applies to cross-border transactions as well?
Cross-border,
is it
because
SMS?
cross-border, for cross-borders, we're only looking for local transfers at the moment. For cross-border, because it's enabled via Visa, so then any can accept globally will be able to use the card and make payments.
And as well, one of our concerns is right now is the technological advancements. We have AI, but also is about cyber threats. So with the increasing sophistication of cyber threats, what advanced security measures that should be implemented when we use this Merchant Trade Money Base ecosystem to avoid potential cyber threats in the future? Yeah.
So for merchant trade, right, security has always been something that is in our mantra to ensure we are in this trust business, right? Securing funds and all that. So from a customer's perspective, of course, we have implemented a few things to ensure that continuous protection of our customers' payments or even their transactions, such as device binding, where if a device is binded to a particular, account is binded to a particular device, then if somebody tries to access to that device, it will not be able to do so. Second will be some things like two-factor authentication, that every transaction that you process would require, whether it's a PIN number or a passcode or an OTP, for example, before you authenticate those transactions. So we are always improving. We are looking at the standards that have been adopted through all the financial landscapes, and then we will adopt it within merchant trade as well. Yeah.
Another thing that we have to look at is how this platform can actually leverage data analytics and also artificial intelligence that could actually offer predictive financial insights of certain organizations or companies, and also within their automated decision making for businesses. How could actually this platform helps? Yeah.
So for this, we already, within Merchant Trade Money Base, right, there is already an analytic tool in terms of financial spend. So for example, a admin who has, let's say, 200 staff can already check like what payments were made, whether it's for, let's say, groceries, F&B, government related payments, utility payments. That already is in place within the app, and that will help them to track even for budgeting purposes, right? This makes it a lot easier for companies when they prepare for their next year budget to know where payments were made for during the year. So that has already been incorporated within our portal. Yeah.
But this is actually, perhaps it could be this the first one in Malaysia, but not the first in perhaps in the other countries in the region.
Yeah.
So how do we stay ahead? How do we prepare ourselves for the fintech ecosystem, that we can stay ahead of all the technological advancements? AI right now is already competitive. So how do we prepare ourselves, especially for merchant trade? What are your strategies in the future?
Yeah, so again, as I mentioned earlier, we are learning from peers. We have a product development team. We've got a good data analytics team that studies patterns and changes, right? So we work with Visa, we work with PayNet, as you mentioned, and through this forum, we can stay ahead of the curve, and we are agile, right? That means any changes, and the good thing about merchant trade is that we're quite lean, and we're quite flat in terms of a structure. So any changes, it's quite fast for us to implement. Is it products? We come up with products right after products. Okay. It's really quite fast, the way we innovate, right? That talks about really the corporate culture that we adopt within merchant trade. So even if we find out there is new technology that has been, tested in different markets, right? We'll be able to take those and implement it if it makes sense with our clients. Again, as I say, a lot of this product, even with merchant trade money biz, I want to emphasize this, that when we developed this product, it wasn't something developed out of a coffee shop within merchant trade colleague, right? It was actually through a study that we have done using our data analytics, where we see our personal cards, which was issued for individuals, were used for business expenses. Right? Then when we did a bit of pattern, we went and interviewed our clients, then we realized, hey, I think there is a need for us to create a product like merchant trade money biz, because there is a gap which needs to be addressed. So that hope that answers your question of us, looking at patterns, understanding the market trends, because trend is your friend, right? So then we will craft out a product which meets the needs of the consumer in the market.
You mentioned earlier that this platform or initiative is to bridge the gap, but how about those who do not have access to these digital tools?
Yeah.
How can you
well, that's a good question. So for example, today we've onboarded a range of customers, right, businesses, from really the kedai runcit, right, a small mom and pop who needed to pay for their utility bills, their quick rent, or even for expenses relating to companies. They don't have systems, right?
Especially those yang jual goreng pisang.
Yeah, correct. So today they already integrated to this, because their idea was very simple. When it comes to their yearly audits, they don't want to co-mingle or to have to explain to their tax consultant what was used for personal and what was used for businesses, right? So anything that's for businesses, just use this merchant trade money biz card, and it's easier for them, and it increases their productivity when it comes to operating to their day-to-day businesses.
So far, do you have any examples of companies or organizations that have used this product and they have shown a great differences before and after using this product?
Perfect question. So one example would be my own wife, right? Okay. So she runs her own business, and she will tell you that her biggest pain on a yearly basis was to actually sit down with a tax consultant, right, or tax auditor, and explain, payments that were made on a personal card, and which was actually for company and not. Now with merchant trade money, because the ability is this, right, not only can you just make payments for businesses, is the receipts or the transactions that is recorded in our merchant trade money biz, you can upload the receipts or invoices directly into our system. So after a year, you can still retrieve those information, and you don't have to do, your buku 25 or your filing and all that, because everything is stored digitally. So for her, she has improved, because she does her monthly management reporting on a quarterly basis. Within these 3 months, even her tax consultant has said, candidly, is that, looks like since I have lesser job, I can charge you lesser, right? Wow. Because I don't have to do a lot more paperwork, right? Everything is so systematically organized in the merchant trade money biz portal. Yeah, so those are real use cases from someone that's close to me.
So not only this merchant trade money base helps to ease your business, but it helps to save time and also saves your money, saves your budget. So what can you say to all the entrepreneurs out there that are still using personal cards for company expenses and also personal card for your own businesses? So what can you say to them?
Yeah, so I think today they already have a tool. The barrier to apply for this card, it's low, right? Anyone with a business that's incorporated in Malaysia can now just apply for a card, and the process is almost straight through, right? So there's no reasons for you to continue to use your personal card. And I know you probably, credit card users out there, you probably, especially personal credit card, will say that, hey, I've been using my credit card and I earn a lot of points, right? And I use those points to claim for my electrical items, rice cooker, microwave, and all this kind of thing. I hear you. But the thing is this, a lot of us loves instant gratification. Right? We want those redemptions immediately. With credit card points, you have to accumulate it over a period of time, and then only you redeem. So with merchant trade money base, what is good and extra that we have, which others don't, is that we have discounts or rewards, where you can log into our website and we will show you, for example, if you're a marketing agency and you want to buy ads on whether it's Meta or Google, you can actually use merchant trade money base, and on top of that, you get a discount of 10 to 15%. As an example, right? So that's a lot of cost saving, right? That's definitely better than your credit card points that you're waiting to accumulate, and you probably only will be able to redeem it at year end, right? There are even travel discounts. For example, travel agencies who wants to buy hotel packages for their tour groups overseas can actually use our platform, key in a code. Once Visa recognizes it, they will give you, let's say, an 8% or a 5% discount. So these promotions are ongoing. Of course, we update those promotions on a month-to-month basis, and so you get instant saving right on the spot. It's good for businesses, more money in your pocket.
Amazing. And I can actually foresee that this merchant trade money base can actually somehow in the future replace our own personal cards.
Oh yeah, yes, for businesses.
And most important thing, no more pay and claim process, that tedious process, and also no more countless hours of wasted hassle to actually list down what we spend, or also stockpiling receipts, and also personal work funds, and also whatnot. So again, I would like to say thank you so much, Ivan alias, the Deputy Chief Commercial Officer of Merchant Trade Asia Sdn Bhd, for helping us understand better on this platform and how can we integrate and also enhance our digital payments and also the financial technology ecosystems as a whole in Malaysia. So again, thank you so much, and you can find this whole discussion on all of our social media platforms and astroawani.com.
Thank you.
Pack Sukan Astro membawakan kepada anda Liga Bola Sepak terbesar.
That is stunning. Oh, brilliant. What a goal.
Kehebatan di dalam gelanggang.
Fabulous.
Perlumbaan di lita pantas.
This is incredible.
Keunggulan UFC. Dan aksi slam dunk tanpa henti khas untuk anda. Sukan terhebat hanya di sini.
Penyasaran subsidi diesel di Semenanjung tidak akan memberi kesan kepada harga barangan keperluan di Sabah, Sarawak dan Labuan.
660 individu berusia bawah 21 tahun di Sarawak telah diberikan kewarganegaraan.
Sarawak kini menjalinkan kerjasama dengan Bank Dunia dalam menjayakan perdagangan karbonnya.
Penstreaman ataupun muat turun kandungan haram seperti penggunaan kotak TV Android adalah aktiviti yang sangat berisiko dan boleh mendedahkan anda kepada malware, virus, ransom dan juga penipuan seperti scam dan juga judi atas talian. Elakkan daripada stream atau download haram. Ingat, layan ori, jangan curi.
Hello and welcome to Niaga Spotlight with me, Tehmina Kaoosji. Niaga Spotlight goes through the week in business and future affairs. Market watch, industries, analysis and insights. We've got you covered right here on Niaga Spotlight. Well, this week on analysis, we're taking a deep dive into Malaysia's healthcare tourism sector. So a couple of quick facts to just establish the landscape before we move forth. Malaysia's healthcare tourism sector was worth about 2.25 billion ringgit in revenue in 2023. Economic spillover was anticipated at being at a record 9.6 billion ringgit. So it's quite clear the numbers show that we are progressing steadily towards emerging as a leading global healthcare destination, hopefully by 2025, which also happens to be just a year before the completion right now of the Malaysia Healthcare Travel Industry Blueprint 2021 to 2025. The mandate, of course, is to have Malaysia as the best Malaysia healthcare travel experience. And according to the Malaysia Healthcare Travel Council, or MHTC, which is an agency under the Ministry of Health, MOH, which stated that the country recorded close to 600,000 health tourist arrivals only for the first half of 2024. Now, MHTC also said that in comparison, Malaysia recorded more than 1 million total health tourist arrivals in 2023, which was once again up by a significant 15% from just 850,000 in 2022, which was also, of course, then related back to pandemic-related travel restrictions. So there is a great opportunity right now to discuss the role of public and private sector stakeholders within the healthcare travel ecosystem in not just maintaining but also expanding the Malaysian medical healthcare tourism sector. None other than Dr. Muhammad Ali Abu Bakar, CEO with the Malaysia Healthcare Travel Council, MHTC, joining me now in the studios for this very insightful discussion. Dr. Ali, good morning. Thank you so much for being with us here today. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much, Tehmina, for granting me this opportunity to have a chat with you on this matter.
Fantastic. I think it's extremely timely. We are already moving into the Q4 of 2024. So let's lay the landscape. And with the latest figures showing that we are doing very well indeed revenue-wise, tell me a little bit more about what this indicates from MHTC's perspective about the overall progress on the blueprint.
So I think, as you rightly pointed out, we have a blueprint which was done to chart the course of health tourism from the year 2021 to 2025, right? We are now at the midpoint of the blueprint. Very surprisingly, last year, as you rightly pointed out again, we hit a number of 2.25 billion when it comes to health tourist revenue. So these are the actual revenue contributed by each of the hospitals. So it's not a speculation, it's not a assumption.
Hard facts and figures, yes.
So the multiplier effect of which you mentioned, 9.6, is actually be times by 4. So those components which is associated services of health tourism, for example, accommodation, for example, relating to their logistics, their travel, right? The food they eat, maybe they do some shopping. That's an estimate. Hopefully we can somehow garner some proper data to actually justify how much it contributes to the economy. So what we have seen is, from that 2.25 billion, the number of tourists is 1.4 million. 1.4 million people came to Malaysia, plus their relatives. It's not including their relatives. Each patient who comes usually brings around 3 to 4 people accompanying with them.
Especially somebody who is a patient or potentially going into the medical system, they have to be accompanied usually.
They have to be accompanied.
Sure.
So health tourism is a bit unique. Imagine a person who's not feeling well, right? And they feel that when they're not feeling well, they want to board a plane or board a ferry to come all the way to Malaysia, right? And for that particular journey, they need to be sure that the person they're going to meet, the doctor they're going to meet, the ambience where it happened, provided to them, and also the entire ecosystem has to be something which is satisfying for them enough so they'll come again. So this is what health tourism is. And that's what MSCC is trying to strive to deliver to the people who are coming way far from Malaysia, right? So from MSCC point of view, we work very well, very hard with the service providers. So for us, there's no point of MSCC to exist if you don't get support from the people who work with. So who are our biggest partners? All the hospitals, you know. So the hospitals are amazing in Malaysia. They work very hard, they perform their services, they are filled with doctors of a very high quality, the infrastructure, and the provision of services which make this patient feel welcome. So these are the partners. So from the blueprint point of view, we identified 3 main areas how we actually improve the health tourism, the experience. Number 1 is called ecosystem.
Right.
Ecosystem refer to the person landing in KLIA or in Jetty or anywhere, how this person actually is brought back to the hospital. Who do we work with? We don't only work with the hospitals. We work together with, for example, Malaysian airports, right? We work together with the travel agents.
Correct. It's actually an end-to-end experience,
end-to-end
right?
experience.
Yeah.
Number 2, we define the markets. From where are these patients coming from, right? A vast majority, 64% of them come from Indonesia.
Oh, fantastic.
Right.
Of course, one of our nearest neighbors as well.
So usually Indonesia, Malaysia, we are serumpun. They used to work like serumpun. So they feel very comfortable. And they're very comfortable because they feel that coming to Malaysia is part of what they have been accustomed to.
That's
so
right.
they feel that they've been treated with respect and they trust. The issue of trust is very important. The doctors give them the trust they need to be taking care of their healthcare. Number 3, lastly, we look at in terms of branding. So we need to actually define what is Malaysian healthcare. So the way we work is actually to make sure that people feel the element of narration of Malaysian healthcare is presented in a message, in a manner that people understand and like to come to Malaysia. I will explain to you later on in the subsequent questions.
Exactly. And everything that you have shared with us so far, Dr. Ali, it's really pointing towards why, for example, Hong Leong Investment Bank, Berhad, HLIB Research, they actually have maintained an overweight perspective, quote unquote, towards the resilient long-term growth drivers. So with all of these in place, actually, would you mind sharing with us a little bit more about the flagship medical tourism hospital program? This was also launched sometime last year. Now might be a good time for us to take stock of what has been achieved so far and how you're feeling about the growth.
Okay. Thank you very much for the question. So you see, flagship medical tourism hospital is one manner, methodology that we use to identify which hospital in Malaysia that we can proudly say this the hospital for medical tourism.
Right.
Right. If you have to go to other countries, immediately one particular hospital comes to mind. If you go to Singapore, there is one. If you go to Thailand, there could be another one. Malaysia, when you say which is the best hospital when it comes to medical tourism, there's many. Right. So the idea was, with the working with the government of Malaysia and Ministry of Health especially, we worked together, put our heads together to identify how can we actually come up with a proper methodology, very evidence-based, to actually coach and groom one of the hospitals to be the hospital that we can proudly say this flagship medical tourism hospital. So we started the project in 2022. So 16 hospitals applied. To a series of selection, we identified 4. These 4, actually, number 1 is the ranking doesn't mean they're number 1. Just out of 4, one is Island Hospital from Penang. Number 2, Sam Darby Medical Center, Subanjaya Medical Center. Number 3 is Mahkota Medical. Number 4, IGN. So now we are at the 3rd phase. Third phase is called acceleration phase, and they are going to be evaluated based on 3 criteria. Number 1 is called medical excellence. They must have services which is par excellence in medical.
Benchmarking.
With the best in the world in terms of any specialty or any subspecialty, and they need to prove to us they have it, and we evaluate them in detail. Number 2, service excellence. The kind of service they provide across the entire ecosystem must be something that we can compare with the best in the world. Number 3 is international branding. It's not only they have to have the medical excellence, service excellence, how they brand themselves. And within the brand, we would like these hospitals to also do clinical research and publish the research so that we can say that the doctors who are performing there are somebody who actually really still working hard to further their interest in a particular field, evidence-based. So this is something we are trying to encourage the doctors in the private hospitals to do, and the hospitals per se as well.
Exactly, and it sounds like the feedback mechanism is important.
Correct.
Because in addition to those who are, of course, are medical tourists for specifically more time-sensitive procedures, there's also wellness tourism. There's also an increase and a growth in, for example, traditional Chinese medicine. And how are such also extremely lucrative and expanding sectors being developed, Dr. Ali?
Tehmina, thank you for the question. MSCC, there's something that we use in MSCC, we call it 145.
Okay.
Okay, maybe I can explain
Absolutely,
a bit.
please.
Okay, one, what's our vision? The vision of MSCC to be the healthcare destination, healthcare travel destination of the world. Means that D means the moment you mention healthcare travel, you think of Malaysia.
Right.
So Malaysia becomes second to none, right? That's the kind of oneness that we want. Number two, we have 4 focus areas. One area is called healthcare. Within healthcare, they are subdivided into 3 areas. One actually is modern medicine, allopathy that we're talking about. I'm a medical doctor, I'm a modern medicine practitioner, so modern medicine, orthopedic and all that. Number 2 is called wellness medicine. So we're working in the sphere of wellness medicine to identify how we actually work together within this sphere so we can showcase to the world that we have this. It's a bit of work because we need to define it and put the parameters well. Number 3 is called TNCM. TNCM stands for traditional and complementary. There are 7 elements within TNCM. Number 1 is called traditional Chinese medicine. Number 2, traditional Indian medicine, Ayurveda.
That's
Number
right.
3, traditional Malay medicine. Number 4, traditional Islamic medicine. Number 5 is homeopathy. Number 5, osteopath. Number 6 osteopath. Number 7 actually is chiropractor.
Fantastic. So and these are all specific specialties that Malaysia can develop further.
Correct.
Hyper-specialization.
Correct. So we are working together with the traditional and complementary arm of Ministry of Health to doing a survey to identify. We have 2 criteria. Number 1, it has to be hospital-based.
Right.
Because we want to showcase it has to be hospital-based.
So professionalized and covered under Healthcare
So you
Act.
said it well.
Yeah.
I don't have to say anymore. You said it well.
Fantastic. So it's very interesting indeed that that MHTC is also truly supporting the building of these sectors before it becomes something that tourists are necessarily looking for. So we're already an automatic choice.
Correct.
Fantastic. Can we move along now into something a little bit more technical, Dr. Ali,
Correct.
from the medical side? Now, how can health information exchange or HIE gaps be overcome to ensure a smooth transition of healthcare-related data, particularly as especially the private healthcare sector is focusing on digitized records?
Correct. Well, HIE, I think for the benefit of the listeners, health information exchange is more of a methodology. It's a framework where one feels across a particular region, we would like to get all the patient's record to be centralized.
Absolutely.
So, and while centralizing, you want to have comparison of the data set so it's easily understood. So it doesn't means that, for example, we don't want somebody to say heart attack and the other people are saying myocardial infarct. Both means similar, but when it comes to information exchange, it's not similar.
So standardizing terminology,
nomenclature, and all that, right? So this is something. This is like something that everybody aspire their country to have, but there are a lot of challenges into that, because they first and foremost for you to get a proper exchange, especially how information exchange is, you need to have participants are willing to share data.
That's true. And when I also think of medical tourism specifically, of course, Indonesia, Serumpun, aside from that, what about overcoming the language barrier when it comes to medical records and translating them?
Correct. So when it comes to Indonesia, we have a lot of people come from China. The first half of this year, we have seen a 3-fold increase in Chinese health tourists.
So that may also have something to do with the visa-free.
Visa-free, yeah.
Absolutely.
And a lot of
contributing
the Chinese a lot of Chinese tourists come here for IVF treatment, infertility treatment. So that's what we found in the records, in the data that we analyzed the first half. So in terms of interpretive and understanding the culture, we call this in MSCC to an immersive culture experience. It means that the culture the patient's coming from, we need to replicate an environment within the hospital so that the patient feel they are immersed in their own culture. At the same time, we put some of the kebudayaan Malaysia into that. So this comes under our fourth pillar. Remember I told you the four focus areas?
That's right.
One is healthcare, number two is clinical offering, number three is tourism, number four is patient experience. Under the patient experience, this is what we are working together with the hospitals to develop that. So right now, a lot of them are speaking only Bahasa and English.
Understood.
So we are trying to work, we are working together with the hospital to persuade them. The Bahasa Indonesia has to be not simple Bahasa Indonesia, it has to be an all-encompassing kind of a Bahasa Indonesia where the people who are speaking it is somebody who has native speakers. They need to hire these people. We have people, a lot of Bangladeshis are coming, so we need people who can speak the Bengali language, right?
That's right.
Working within the hospital. We are trying to attract Arabs. So we need to get people, not Arabs, Arabics, we have people from Tafiz. A lot of Tafiz students, we can hire them to become interpreter to give them the immersive culture experience.
Correct. They can be skilled specifically for the medical services sector.
Correct. I'm sure you've seen a lot of people who speak Mandarin in Malaysia.
Absolutely.
There are Indians who speak Mandarin, there are Malays who speak Mandarin, Chinese. Why can't we hire them? So this is what we are working with the hospital. So that we actually provide solution to what are you asking just now.
Exactly. So what I'm actually seeing is that with sufficient collaboration and also intuitiveness to capture markets which are already growing, I think there's plenty of employment opportunities out there, especially for younger Malaysians,
there
right?
There are a lot of employment opportunities actually.
Fantastic. Let's move into another really topical issue, Dr. Ali. We now go on to looking at patients' data privacy when it comes to the healthcare tourism sector. What are some key areas of interest that MHTC actually sees in the path forward, since data privacy is a constant challenge in today's ecosystem?
Actually, in Malaysia, we are actually very well governed, because we can call Act 586, it's Private Healthcare Facilities and Services Act. There's a subsection 115, which talks about patient confidentiality, which is require everybody working in the hospital to honor the fact that this is patient confidentiality, secrecy, you can't reveal, right? And we also have PDPA, Personal Data Protection Act, which also talks about the similar thing. So end of the day, in any hospital transaction, the patient consent is the most very important. So the patient must consent that this data is kept by the hospital. There's always a consent form. And the Act 586 talks about informed consent. So the patient must be full aware and understand why the data is being kept, why the information is being sought, and where it's being kept. So how it's going to be managed and handled. So all this is well taken care of by the government within the Act itself.
And any thoughts, Dr. Ali, on how generative AI, Gen AI, and also big data is playing a role in ensuring that data privacy parameters are actually matching up to global standards in Malaysia?
Correct. So generative AI, I think by definition, generative AI is talking about using machine language, using existing data to generate new data which is related back to the existing data. It's different from predictive, right?
Very true.
So when it comes to generative AI in terms of medicine, so what we're trying to do is there are a lot of areas where people are trying to work out certain models for it. For example, a person comes to see a doctor. He or she may have certain condition, maybe 40 years old, with a tendency to have diabetes. Now he's coming with weakness, right?
Right.
So using generative AI, the doctor would actually have some indication with the help of a support system, decision support system, to actually come up with a provisional diagnosis or how to manage that particular patient at that level. So you are not using other data, you're using the patient's data.
Their own data, but in a customized manner.
In a customized manner. When it comes to big data, most of the time, most of the hospitals or most of the informatics organization is they actually strip away all the patient identifiers, right? So you don't have the data referring back to a single person, right? But then again, the issue of consent is very important. The patient should know that the data will be used from that angle, right? So that's something that people must be aware of. I don't think a lot of organizations are aware of this. When you go to government, it's different. So when you go to government clinics, right, the data is owned by the patient, owned by the government. So the government have a right to take the data and make it, and with the consent of the patient, actually use it for predictive analysis. For example, they need to know in a particular town or area in Malaysia, there's a lot of hypertension or diabetes, so they can allocate the right resources.
Exactly.
If they don't have...
Especially given our pretty heavy NCD burdens, right?
Correct. Yeah. And coming back to the discussion we had earlier, where there's proper allocation of resources, right? If you don't have this kind of data analytics, right, how are we going to make policy decisions? So from the government angle is there. But the worrying part is how from the private side they're going to manage it. So from MHCC point of view, when you have engagement with the CEOs of the hospitals, when you have engagement with our counterparts, we always the discussion of patient confidentiality, patient confidentiality, data confidentiality comes. So we always tell them that this act governs all of you, so to be very careful.
Exactly.
And that the patient actually owns the data. So you have to ask his opinion and permission for you to actually
informed consent, basically.
Correct.
Absolutely. And because we are on the issue of also allocation and provision, I would be remiss not to ask you and ask for a quick comment, Dr. Ali, on how best we can also look at allocating adequately within the public healthcare sector.
Right.
Because it's also true at the same time, not only the Rakyat of Malaysia, but also there are medical tourists who come in who also may be wishing to utilize the public healthcare facilities.
Correct.
And keeping up with actually some of the topical issues which include chronic staffing allocation.
Correct. So when it comes to, I think I may not be the right person to talk about the government aspects, but if I can share some insight from the private side. Right?
Most certainly,
so
yes.
You see, in Malaysia, one thing good, one thing amazing about Malaysia, the way they actually manages the private hospitals is that there's a specified ratio which actually identify. For example, if you want to open an ICU, right, you need to have a ICU trained nurse per bed, right? If you want to open a medical ward, so you need to have a ratio of one staff nurse per certain number of beds, right? So because of that, when the private hospitals want to open additional ward, when they want to open additional building, for example, they want to build a new 16-story or 17-story, they're very careful. So they may want to build that 16-story, but when they want to open it up, they don't open the whole 16-story. So they work together very carefully, plan properly their human resource development. So they may actually, before even building the hospital, they may send a bunch of nurses to go for training, general degree. They may even send some nurses for post-basics. So they have maybe 3 to 5 year plan. So as and when the building comes up, they have the right amount of nurses to manage certain floors with the building. May not be open all, right? So that's how, from the private point of view, we manage resource allocation and provision of services.
Absolutely. And I think that is so valuable because that example of a learning curve ought to be emulated so that we can hopefully overcome the perception of the shortages by better allocation.
I think you used the right word. It's better allocation of resources.
Fantastic. Dr. Ali, perhaps we can end out with a discussion on looking at the existing infrastructure around healthcare tourism. We're talking about accommodation, transportation, because this is also the spillover effect, and how that can be perhaps better harmonized as we are moving towards attracting even more medical tourists with regards to moving into 2025.
Right. I think one of the, if I can say, I've been in the company for 9 months now. So what I learn and what I value from our partners is, from the hospital point of view, so they're actually providing the best kind of service for the health tourists. But there's an entire ecosystem surrounding it. So when the patient comes to the hospital where the patients are being managed, I think we are okay at that level. And of course, they're developing it further. But the challenge we have is, how is the patients coming to the hospital? The flight, because some of the target markets, they don't have the connecting flight. And that's an issue we have to discuss. Number two, when they arrive in Malaysia, how are they being managed from the immigration point of view and all that?
Fair enough. Is there support at every step of the way?
Yeah, so for us, MSTC, we have something called meet and greet services. The moment patient land, we have somebody waiting for them outside the boarding gate, outside the exit gate. Then we bring them through a fast lane immigration all the way to where they want to go. So we have that capability in two of the airports in Malaysia, which is KLA1, KLA2, right? So the other challenge we have is we have 1.4 million people coming to the hospitals, including their relatives. You can times by 3, easily around 7 million, right?
Fair enough, yes.
But the challenge is who's actually taking care of them? Who's bringing them around to see the attraction in Malaysia? There's health, there's tourism. The tourism aspect. So this next couple of months or 1 or 2 years, especially for incoming Visit Malaysia 2026, we'll have to work more closer to with the tourist agents, with MOTAC, to make sure that these people are brought rightly, maybe to see all the attraction in Malaysia. And lastly, if I can end, you see, we are living in Malaysia. Kebudayaan Malaysia is fantastic. We have so many ethnicities, right? Why is it not brought to the hospitals? So what we're going to do, we're going to have, I got to share this, tomorrow, we're going to have an inaugural session where we are working with Prince Court Medical Center.
Right.
We are bringing culture of Malaysia into hospital. So we're going to have a small session, call all the health tourists who are patients there, and all the patients. We're going to have Persembahan Malaysia. So in the next 2 years, we're going to do many of those. So we're going to work with all the other hospitals. We're going to bring Malaysian culture, Malaysian Malay culture, Malaysian other ethnicity culture, Malaysian Chinese culture, Malaysian Indian culture, maybe even a wayang kulit in the lobby of the hospital. So that we need to that comes under our number 3, which is tourism. This is where we're going to infuse our kebudayaan into that. So this is what we want to do.
I think it actually sounds like the opportunity has not even been explored 20% perhaps for it to actually be maximized, right?
Synergy. We are talking about synergy. So synergy will maximize, will make it not 1 + 1, not going to be 2. It's going to be multiples of 2. So this is what we are our way forward. This is how we're going to augment and coordinate to make sure this thing happens.
Exactly, because we're not only looking at an ecosystem being organic, but being quite intentional moving forward.
It has to be deliberately planned.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Ali, there's actually so much more that we could discuss, but in a nutshell, perhaps if I could give you the space to just describe what are your hopes moving forward towards the rest of the year and to the completion of 2025.
Okay. I think thank you very much firstly for Niaga Spotlight and Tehmina for giving me this opportunity. From MSCC point of view, we are really, all of us came back and working together with the agency because we want to build Malaysia. So we are very proud of what we have. We are one of the best doctors. We are some of the best doctors in the world. And doctors are very well trained. And they are working in a setup which is amazing infrastructure. Because we do research, we are able to bring forth the new drugs faster in Malaysia compared to everybody else.
Fair enough.
Our medical outcome, you get treated in Perlis, you get treated in Sabah, the medical outcome is similar because we govern the outcome, we govern the doctors, right? A lot of hospitals are actually accredited internationally by JCI, locally by MSQH. Most important, Malaysian, we are very warm, we smile. Malaysian hospitality, we don't like to fight with our team. This binds everything together. So in coming years and in the future, we have all these, we can actually harmonize, synergize to make it to be a real growth sector for Malaysian economy.
Absolutely.
That's what we want to
Not
do.
just in post-pandemic years, but for every year moving forward.
For every year, inshallah.
Thank you. Thanks very much for being with us here on Niaga Spotlight.
Thank you, Tehmina, for this wonderful opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, that's all we have time for today on Niaga Spotlight. I'm Tehmina Kaoosji signing off for now. We'll see you again next week with more business analysis and insights. Here's to a productive week ahead.